Let's see.
Oh, I can. I can.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine. So we'll do our quick intro.
Okay.
Um, for those who don't know, my name is Monique Macklin. In the industry, I'm known as the Pink Power CEO, and I work with people who average $50,000 or more annually who are looking to begin their wealth building journey, where I teach them how to make, manage, and multiply money.
Hi, I'm the Prophetic Financier, Al Mills, and I specialize in helping people create more income, more time, and more location freedom the righteous way.
All right. So I wanted to revisit our conversation, our first conversation on here, of 50-50, because we never posted it, but it was quite a few technical difficulties. So are you able to hear me okay?
Oh yes, you're loud and clear on my end.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, 50-50 relationships. And because we talk about finance all the time, I wanted to make sure we drove that point home on that there is a better way, a more fair and harmonious way to, I guess, split expenses in the household without causing any rift. But again, making it fair and keeping it fair across the board.
Okay, well, I love the fact that you use the word fair as opposed to equality because the reality of the matter is, if you really look at life, right, there is no such thing as equality. There are
Right.
people who are tall, there are people who are short,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are individuals, skinny, large, whichever. And that comes back to the universal principle of the law of polarity, which basically means there's always a polar opposite to something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's no equality but fairness, but life is fair. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
does have the opportunity. It's just that do they take it or not? But to relationships, though, well, here's the old long-term debate.
Mm-hmm.
It is said in many religious books that when a man findeth a wife, he findeth a good thing, right? And
Right.
when you do take a wife or a woman takes a husband, you become one.
Mm-hmm.
So when you become one, that means 100%. That means wholeness. So even that whole dynamic of 50-50, how does that make sense if you're one?
Mm.
If you
That's
became
true.
one, that means you're one, you're 100%. It didn't
Yeah,
say two halves make a whole. You
this is
became one,
this is true. This is true.
right?
Now I know you and I had a discussion. That's a quick one, I guess last week, right? Or something like that when I was we were talking about when my late husband was alive and we would talk about bank accounts. And you were like, "Well, didn't you all have like a joint bank account?" And I was like, no."
And I said, I was like, well, I'm like, there should have been a household operating account. And I
Hmm.
think in the 50-50 construct that we're talking about, I think a couple, a family needs to understand that family is business and
Right.
that there needs to be a family operating account in which all expenses come out of that
Hmm.
both parties should be contributing to. I use the word contribute as opposed to 50-50.
Correct.
Now,
Now,
mhm.
one of the things that, well, we always hear, especially the conversation online, is 50-50. The woman should contribute 50% and the man should contribute 50%. But in your teaching to us is that it should be living expenses should be 30% of your income. So, with that being said, everyone should be contributing 30% of their income into that family joint account,
That is correct.
and that should be what we pay our expenses on. Now, is that just the household expenses, or should that also include our card notes, insurance, and everything?
Anything that is lifestyle, that account should be lifestyle.
Okay.
So whatever lifestyle or the way that you styled your life, you and your partner,
Mm-hmm.
because a husband and a wife should be in a partnership, right? What
Right.
the type of life that we should be living, that we desire to live, then we need to make sure that there's sufficient capitalization of that lifestyle account so that
Right.
we can live our best lives.
Right. So even 'cause I'm asking that question mainly because so if we're talking living expenses, that would be mortgage or rent, utilities, things of that nature. But the lifestyle, you're meaning the car, because some people will say, well, we'll put our living expenses in here and you pay your own car note and stuff like that, right?
See, hear that word? Your own. That means
It's,
there's an independent statement again. You're
yeah,
declaring independence from the union.
correct.
When a corporation owns an asset, it's the corporation's asset.
It is.
It's not the vice president, if that's his asset and the president's, no, it's a company asset. So it should be the family asset. Because here's the reality, I was married for many years.
Right.
How often did my better half drive my vehicle? Quite often. So it wasn't, that's my car.
Right, right.
Whichever car is available in the driveway or in the garage, you pick up a key and you drive and you go. So how is it? How is that? To me, that sounds like separation.
It does. It does. And that's the problem with a lot of relationships, especially in today's time, right? So we all know that the way the economy is, not many people can rely on a man or a woman to maintain the household solely on themselves, on their
Of
own.
course, of course.
So this is the reason for this dynamic has been such a big conversation online on many different platforms. But again, it's a lot there's separation that always seems to happen somewhere along the line. But what we're saying is if we're contributing 30% of our income to our lifestyle, then that would make it fair across the board. Because if she earns 60,000 and he earns 120,000, she shouldn't be pay in the mortgage is 2,000. She shouldn't have to pay $1,000 towards that mortgage, and he pays 1,000 when he makes 50% more.
Correct. So that would make it disproportionate. I agree with that. So yeah, that's a better system in play. Well, like anything else, right? We talk about this in the community that when you come into a union with someone else, that there is your current reality, right? But
Right.
then the couple coming together with two individuals that came together, and that's the current reality of union. But then you need to create a desired result. What is the relationship striving toward? Are we looking for 2.2 kids, the house with the white picket fence, a dog named Spot? Are we going to have one investment property? Are we looking to put away $500,000 futuristically for our retirement? We're looking to travel 3 times a year. Everything should be strategically laid out
And
and
that should be done
strive towards the
before.
goal.
That's done
Correct.
before you get married.
That's at the closing table.
Okay.
That's at the closing table supposed to solidify the terms. That's why we
Yeah.
call them nuptials. For those of you who are private, who understand the right of privacy and the power to take a mate, you create your own nuptial.
This is true. This is true. So a family is a business, and it should be ran as such. A marriage is a business, right? So it should be ran as such. There's the CEO, there's the vice president, and then the children come in and they play their role as well if there are children in this union. And there should be family meetings regularly, correct?
That is correct. Now, I will say this. Every family have their own dynamics, which means what you create, you control. So everyone should create their own, if you will, covenanted contract, covenant with your mate and what works for you. But ideally, if I'm just speaking from my perspective as a high value man. I would never be looking for a wife to be my maid or be my cook
Correct.
because I already have that. I can have that. If I didn't have that, I could have that, right? So that doesn't make sense to do that. She would be my helpmate, my partner. I would be pouring into her to be able to be in a position to effectuate a role in our family business that we're building or that we're expanding together as a co-pilot, not as a passenger. And so we kind of hear on the internet and on the web that, you know what, the woman's going to come in and cook and clean and cooch. Excuse me for saying, if this was rated PG, I apologize.
Yeah.
But if that's what they believe, that's all that's value being brought to the table, a man who has established himself, that wouldn't be very much of an appeal.
That's not an appealing thing, right?
Correct. If you already have your home and you have all these other amenities, or just better yet, as two individuals, shouldn't you have been learning how to cook and clean for yourself if you were single?
This is true. This is so
So how
true.
is that considered an addition?
It's so again, you stated I am a high value man. There's not many high value men out here. They think they are, but they aren't. And most high value men don't need to do a 30%, or a 50-50, right? So that's
Correct.
point number one. So, but when it comes to most traditional relationships, this is going to take two incomes to support that household. That's why the argument keeps going back and forth on the 50-50 conversation in the first place,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So when that happens, they want you to come to the table with your 50-50. They want you to come to the table with a meal at least 3 or 4 times out of 7 days out of the week. They want you to do the laundry. They
So
want
how's
you
that 50-50? That sounds like the woman has a lot more contribution than
exactly.
50%,
Exactly.
in my
But they
opinion,
don't.
anyway.
But but this is how women are selling themselves, including with the cooch, right? So
Yeah,
I'm going to cook for you, clean for you, and do all of that other extra, tricks that you might require.
correct.
But that's what I bring to the table, and because there's such a shortage of men, women are willing to do whatever to snag somebody.
Yeah, they say people, the people do strange things for the change.
Right, right. All in the name of my man, my man, my man.
Right, of
But
course.
um, but we have to start understanding and realizing that when you enter into a relationship, it's a contract there, and there everyone should be playing their role, not just on the domestic side. Like this is somebody you're going to trust to have your back, right? This is somebody who's going to, you say the queen protects the king,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So if the queen is protecting the king, she needs to be equipped to do that. She needs to have knowledge and certain, or, at least be willing to
And
learn.
I'm very happy that you point that out. For those of you who play chess out there, who knows, we're talking about the trestle board and the queen and her moves on the board, but the primary goal is to protect the king and get him to the other side.
Right.
Now, so think about that now. So put that in dynamic. Like you said, the king, though, what he brought to the table was the rook, was the castles, and all the
Mhm.
pawns was his already.
Correct.
He gave her the working tools to move and advance the kingdom to the other side of the board.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes
Mm-hmm.
back to my point. You have to pour into your mate, ideally, so that she can become your co pilot in this situation.
Yeah. And you have to, I think you have to be someone that she can learn from as well,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if even if you want her to be and do and have all these things, but what do you be doing and having for her besides, your 50-50, your 50% of the 50-50? I mean, it just,
It's 50% economically, but then emotional intelligence and all those other contributions it becomes disproportionate.
it does. And like
Absolutely.
you said, she can't be contributing plus giving birth plus doing laundry and dishes, and there's a lot of women out here who are in marriages that are single mothers.
Yeah, the father's in the house but not present.
Correct. And
Hmm.
they think just because I go out every day and I pay some bills that would be enough, but she's doing the same. In many instances, she's doing the same. So it has to be fair. But even just talking about the whole 30%, what is the best way you think when building this contract together, the nuptials, as you said? What is the best way to even bring up this? Well, how about even for high value men when they want to have a prenuptial?
Well, that's a great question. Been there, done that. I think the best way to be is that when we come together, there is a vision of where we're
Mm,
going. And if we're starting with ground zero together moving forward, I'm bringing all the working tools back to the chessboard again. I'm going to
okay.
provide the castle. I'm going to provide the initial resources for us to springboard in our new venture together. But
Mm-hmm.
anything and everything that I may have acquired and or inherited from the kings before me who passed it down to me, that's going to stay in that lineage. But everything moving forward will be put into our posterity moving forward. So that means what we build moving forward, we equally inherit
Okay.
or are entitled to that. But what I had prior or bringing to the table would not be in that consideration, other than the resources and the tools needed for us to effectuate the new plan, the new dream.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So whatever she helps you build from the point of marriage. Well, what if she helped you start building before you got married? Because sometimes that happens too. But
Well, if that's not, it needs to be established. If it's not a clear understanding to that, then you can have problems in that regard. But yeah, if that is the case, then yeah, I think if a person's helping you build, they are entitled to being that partner. They should be
their share,
entitled to
right?
whatever their share is, of course. And
Yeah.
again, and then if we're building it for legacy, then we're not doing it for ourselves. While we're doing it, we have use and possession, but then we're going to leave it to our heirs if we're electing to even have children, because that's another conversation that needs to be
That's true
had.
too. That's true
For
too.
example, at my age now, the requirements of a wife is different than it was at 26, 27 when I married initially, right?
Right.
Because at those stages, a male is looking for a woman to advance his legacy and meaning to bear children.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Now, middle age now, we're not looking for the woman to produce children. It's a whole different dynamic. So you have to know where you are in stage of life and how that agreement should be.
Exactly. So when you're sitting down at the table and we're going to put this agreement together so that everything again is fair across the board, we're both two working adults in the household. We're not, well, I guess we're kind of equal. Well, you said there is no equality, you said, right? So we're both two working people. We're going to contribute our 30% for our lifestyle plus whatever. It's probably going to be more like 50% when you think
So let's
about it.
stop there. So here's the first question. All right, we both were living independent. We were both living independently before.
Correct.
Then we come in. So technically, when two parties come together, there's a difference in being independent and self-sufficient. So when you are single, you are independent and self-efficient.
Correct.
Self-sufficient, right? But when you come into a union with someone else, you guys got to get rid of the independence and it becomes dependent with sufficient self-sufficiency.
Gotcha.
Does that
Okay.
make sense? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Some other people believe that they're coming into the relationship for dependency, but want to declare their independence.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So when we're coming together, we're going to have this conversation on what is the split, right?
Well, how
We're
are we
going
going
to
to
say
live?
what's
How
going
do
to
we want to
be
live?
not the
How do we
split.
want to live?
When I say the split, what is going to be what is going to be? This money is going to go in this pot to cover this, that, and the third, right?
That is correct.
So that's what I mean by the split. And that way, again, there is some sort of fairness, but technically you're probably going to wind up still putting like 50% of your income into this pot, but 30% is going to be for the expenses of that we accumulate for our household, and then other things like travel and investing would be maybe the additional 20% that we're putting in.
Right. Well, let's look at it from this perspective. The first question would be is, okay, if two parties are coming together, let's just say a person is not high value and have all that already. Okay, I have my apartment, you have your apartment, right? The first question would be, whose apartment is larger? Are we looking to have kids? If so, who has the larger apartment that could accommodate future children? Okay, I have a three
True.
bedroom, you have a one bedroom. Then it's more applicable for us to move into the
Come over
three bedroom
here.
apartment. And so that becomes that. Okay, so my rent for the three bedroom right now is 3,000 and your one bedroom is 1,500. So now we have to put a line item that, okay, living housing is 3,000 a month. Okay,
Right.
what else we have? Cable, Wi-Fi, all the necessities. We have a food budget
Groceries.
that we're going to have, In that case,
Mm-hmm.
all that gets accumulated there. Okay, that's the
Yep.
fundamentals. Okay, now vehicles. Do
Mm-hmm.
we are we going to agree to have new vehicles, or are we bringing our old vehicles into the relationship? Now, if it's a prior car that you own, then yeah, that should not be in the pot anymore because that was not something that you're acquiring new in the
Okay.
relationship.
Well, what if it still has a car note though?
But
Then
that
we
car
could.
note was established prior to the relationship.
Oh, okay. Really?
If we said we're going to get new cars, then that's our expense as a family to get new cars.
Okay. Well, I'm
Because
thinking about.
suppose now my car, suppose my Mercedes or whatever is paid off, but you
Oh
still
yeah.
have a note. See the
Yeah, yeah,
difference?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm thinking whatever the bills are, right? Student loans, all of that. So because I have student loans before, that was something else I was going to bring up because of course I look at we looking at credit reports all the time. People have six-figure credit student loan debt, right? So these are conversations that we need to have. So since I had the student loan debt prior to this union, that's my bill.
That's your educational bill. That's something that can't be taken from you. If in this relationship or if you move on out of the relationship, your education and all that you're going to still use as a form of means to get income and residual effect, right?
Right.
I wouldn't, the previous spouse wouldn't have any access to that future benefit.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, see, this is why I'm having this conversation because I'm like, whatever the bills are should just be in that pot, is what I was thinking.
Okay,
Right.
but then
So,
now you see how it needs to be weighted average. It needs to be proportionate in fairness.
right. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So I'm thinking if my bills are, well, if you had
See,
fifteen hundred
operative word,
dollars.
your bill, right?
Yeah, I know, right? You see me? I'm trying to change it up. I'm trying to change it up, ladies. I'm trying to change it. Okay, so I was paying $1,500 a month by myself. Now moving in with you, let's say I'm paying I'm contributing 750. So that extra 750 can now go towards my student loan debt.
Hey, there you go. See, it all works out. Exactly.
Right. And it doesn't, I'm already used to paying the 1,500. Now I can do it that way. So
See, there you go.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
proportionate. That becomes proportionally fair.
Yeah, yeah. So as opposed to, so we're having this conversation really because a lot of people are are having battles about this whole 50-50 thing. And to be honest with you, a lot of women work and they don't want to contribute.
Yeah, that's
So
another conversation.
that's another conversation because
My
they.
money is my money. Your money is my money.
Exactly. And then so that's a conversation because I've seen it happen plenty of times just scrolling on these different apps on the blue app, the whatever app. People are having these conversations like I don't I need a
Tr-
man
tr-
who can pay all
truth
the
be told,
bills.
truth be told, I mean, for I'm only going to speak for high value men.
Hmm.
If I own businesses and the like, why would I allow my queen to go work in another man's
I
business
agree.
when I have my own that she could take a position in?
I
Make that
agree.
make sense to me? That another man would have that much authority over my queen.
Hmm.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I agree.
And that's only for high value men who have those assets to bring to the table. That would not make sense.
And even if you are aspiring to become that high value person, you want to bring someone alongside of you who can help you get to that level, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Who can build it with you, and somebody who's she might not know what it is you do. You might be starting an HVAC business, but she could still be your secretary and your customer service.
Bookkeeper and customer service. Do
Yeah.
exactly.
She could still, schedule those appointments for you and all those other wonderful things that help you to grow.
More
So
money in the
there's
household. More money stays in the house, right?
exactly, exactly. So there's definitely ways to bring the right person in, but you have to one find somebody who is willing to come alongside of you and help you build. And you can build from scratch. We prefer when we take people through the process that we do acquire a business already in place because it makes more sense. But there are a lot of people out there who are gung ho on having their name in lights. So we understand that whole process too. But we also know that when it comes to building wealth, it's through real estate and through business. So there's never been, and I think you sent me this earlier, right, Al? A video on when you see no one has ever built wealth working multiple jobs,
That's correct.
right? There's nobody, and this, we come from, we've seen the working class people. We've seen it all. My dad worked for transit, and I saw other people working transit.
So did mine as electrical engineer. So
Oh,
did mine.
see, and your dad worked at New York City Transit as well.
Hmm.
So they were working class people, and for the most part, those who had to get second jobs, they still didn't have enough, and they had less time still with their family.
Yeah,
So you have to figure out a way. You got to have a plan in place that's going to help you begin that wealth building journey, so that you can buy back more of your time for yourself and for your family.
that's correct.
So we are having this conversation because we want, one, this is about 50-50 is not a good option for relationships. It's not fair, especially if one party earns more than the other person, significantly more than the other person. But it's about really just bridging that whole gap and bringing families back together to
Through
work.
through financial intelligence, though. See,
Yeah,
the other way was conventional wisdom, where we just split the bills down the
down the
middle.
middle.
Whereas, why don't we create a financial plan for our lives?
Right.
Let's make a conscious
Why
decision
is
together to only live off of 30-40% of our income.
right? So if you earn $100,000 a year, $30,000 of that should be going towards your lifestyle living expenses.
Now, let's say that when you look at that number, it's not enough. It's not sufficient. Then we agree to raise a percentage of our annual income to contribute to make it work for our lifestyle requirements.
Exactly. But if that's what you bring in, and then your spouse brings in 100,000, let's say you both earn 100,000, that's $60,000 in the budget, the pot, to pay for our living expenses. So that's what, $5,000 a month.
Yeah. So how can you live with 5,000?
Right. How can we comfortably live at $5,000 a month and make it, still keep it fair without going out here and getting some crazy house? It doesn't have to be a McMansion and all this stuff, but how can we live very nicely, very modestly until we can level up at $5,000 a month? And that's what all of our expenses paid. And you can definitely do it.
Now let's fast forward that 15, 20 years later.
Right.
You have the children now, unfortunately, in the society that we live in, the millennials and the Z's, they're still living, adult children are living home with their parents now.
They
That's a thing right now. So the dynamic changes now. Every adult in the house now has to contribute to living.
This is
It's
true.
not that now mom and pop is going to support my lifestyle. I'm an adult and I'm working. My money's for me, and then my parents have to still provide food and shelter for me. No, that doesn't. That's not group economics.
No, not at all. You working, you contribute. I
So
agree.
now we revamp how that looks.
Because at the end of the day, if you got an apartment, it's going to cost a whole lot more than you contributing to your parents.
So once again, most children who do move out would rather go pay a stranger's mortgage than pay their family's mortgage. Their parents contribute with their parents' mortgage, which they will eventually inherit the house anyway. But they're not going to inherit anything from that landlord that they're paying rent to, or the mortgage that they're paying the mortgage for via as a tenant. See, this is
Correct.
the intelligent conversations that we have to have.
Yeah, exactly. People don't, they want their quote unquote privacy, of course, right? But again, you would rather go spend $1,800 for one bedroom, one bath, as opposed to say, I'll give my mom and dad $900 and help make life a little bit more easier for them at home. And I still have $900 to myself. So if I need privacy, I can go and get it.
Yeah, yeah. But most kids be like, "Well, I gotta give my mother my pops $900 for what?" That's what I grew up in this house.
Right, right,
That's the mentality, right?
right, right. But
My
again,
childhood home.
you'll go give a stranger and help him build his net worth.
Go make that make sense.
as opposed to keeping it within the family dynamic and helping them, or even say, invest it. Like show them how to take that $900 and invest it and make more money for, do that. You can, there's different ways that you can do it if you're going to be there. You can help contribute in a major way that can benefit everybody.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, this is a conversation that happens a lot. It happens very often online. But I wanted to revisit it because I know when we first talked about it, it was some technical difficulties.
Right.
But I think it's necessary that we understand that a household is a corporation and how it should be ran properly so that it makes sense. Because growing up, like I've said plenty of times, there were no money conversations. And I know for most households in America, there are no money conversations. It happens in wealthy households,
Absolutely.
but maybe it's because of what you call the shame, guilt, and disgust in other households that they don't want to talk about money.
It's painful for most people.
It's
Money is a
that's a money
painful
trauma.
conversation. It's a money trauma. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a money trauma that people don't want to have, but it's better to have it because I don't understand how people think when their child turns 18 years old, it's time for them to get out. Like, and you haven't taught them anything. So they don't know that, the light and gas bill is going to come. I told you the first time I moved out and I called my dad and I was like, kind of upset. I was like, probably like month 2 or 3. I was like, yo, they send these bills every month. He was like, God.
Every single month.
When my father stopped laughing, he's like, yes, Mo, they come every month. So needless to say, I probably 2 or 3 months later, I was back at home. I was like, bump it. This ain't gonna work for me. There's no room to go have fun. There's no fun
And
money.
okay, so did you then pay the bill home when you got back there?
I was young, Al. I just went back home.
So the answer is resounding no.
It's a resounding no. I went back home to my basement apartment at my dad's house. That's where I went.
Free 99. Free
Went back to
99,
my
ladies and
home
gentlemen.
in Queens Village and mind my business.
Free 99, ladies and gentlemen. Free 99.
So listen, I knew it was going to be a hot meal, and the lights was going to stay on, and the cable was going to flow. So I was like, yeah, this adult stuff is not. I don't like it. I don't like it. But it was. I wasn't taught though. So no, again, I had to call home and be like, so this comes every month. Like I just paid Comcast. Or who was in New York? Who was the cable company? Not Comcast, but it was somebody
Let's see,
else.
it was Time Warner
Time
or
Warner,
Time
exactly.
Warner. It's probably
That's
Time
exactly
Warner.
what it
Or
was.
or Cablevision.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it was overwhelming. And that's why I said you have to prepare. Like, I had conversations. I wasn't, financially stable, of course, raising my daughter as a single mom, but I
Right.
had those conversations with my daughter. So when she did move out on her own the first time, well, she'd never been back home, but when she moved out, she understood how to at least pay some bills. So I mean, it wasn't that those weren't she knew what a checkbook was. Those are things that we weren't taught. It was just like, what is this? I don't know what this is.
When's the last time you seen a checkbook these days? We
It's
don't
been
have them.
yeah.
Or a passbook savings account.
Oh Lord, no, I haven't seen that in a long, long time.
So now
Everything is on a
what
debit
conversation do you have now? How to balance a digital ledger?
card. You said, do we have those conversations?
Yeah.
No, well, I know they do with my granddaughter. They do because
Awesome.
she
Awesome.
has her own debit card, and I think she has a American Express card as well.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Yeah, but she understands that it has to be paid every month, right? Because she
Right, of
has a
course.
little job and stuff. So I think my son-in-law will play around and say, go get this for me. And she'd be like, when you giving me my money back? 'Cause
Wow.
yeah, she's another Goldberg, but yeah, she don't play. She's like, yeah, no, but she monitors her money very, very well. So I love the fact that they've given her that the education to understand that this is what needs to be done when it comes
Yes.
to, you know, you
Yes.
have a little job and stuff, but this is what needs to happen, kind of thing. And she's understanding that. So, but these are, again, I didn't have the conversation with my parents, but I had it with my daughter. My daughter and my son-in-law are having it with their children. So it has to, that kind of money trauma has to end somewhere, right? Got to break those curses somewhere along the line. And I wanted to make sure I did it. What didn't happen for me, I wanted to make sure it happened with my child, if that makes sense. So,
Makes a
and
lot of sense.
and money is a big. It's like a taboo in many households, right? Like they don't want to talk about it. Everybody wants to floss, but nobody really wants to talk about what the real is.
Yeah, that's true. You gotta
So,
figure. You'll figure it out like I figured it out. That's what most
and that's
people
the
say.
sad part. That's the sad part, and that is definitely a money trauma that we have to. Because wealthy people, when I saw that man from Chick-fil-A that owns Chick-fil-A say that when once or twice a year they go to the Chick-fil-A compound, I guess, with everybody, they come around and they have conversations about the business and how the business is moving forward, so that everybody's on board, including those who married into the family. They understand how this works. Like
That's it.
there's no deviating from this plan, kind of thing.
No
And
way.
yeah, so we have, just like he has this kind of dynamic with his family, even if it's just you, your spouse, and one child, you still need to sit down and have that conversation. And even
Be
on the
talking.
Cosby Show, remember they would have family conversations and
That
meetings,
is
and
correct.
it's the same. It's just because I remember seeing that, and I was like, a family meeting, what is that? What are they
Well,
talking about?
in our community, we have the family bank where we create our own family reserve system and family
Hmm.
banking system, and I advocate that annually you take the family on a full expense paid trip to
Hmm.
have fun, but also to talk business and
To
how
talk
to move
business.
the family's finances further into the future.
Hmm.
That's
And
smart.
that's smart money moves right there. So you have to not be scared of the conversation. I don't care if you earn $20,000 a year this year. How am I going to get to 40,000 next year? What is the
Flip.
plan?
That's right. Flip the money. Stop flipping houses and flip money.
Exactly. If
Turn it
that's what you're
over.
earning now, what do I have to do in the next year to 2 years to double my money? If you earn 60,000 right now, what do I have to do to get to 120,000, 150,000? And you put a plan in place. And if you don't know how to put a plan in place, that's what we do.
Right. And it's something in the finance world emerges in the private equity. We call it multiples, exit multiples, multiple on equity. And so what normally is the game plan is that whatever we start out with as an initial seed, we like to see a minimum of 2x to 2.5 equity multiple when we pull it out.
Hmm.
So that would mean if we invest in 60 G's here, let's just say 5 years later, we should be pulling out 2.5 times that
Okay. Okay. So at least 35, 38,000, 40,000,
on top of the initial
and
seed. Yes,
on top of the 16.
correct.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you figure out where you're going to put that next.
So basically, you're quadruple. So basically, you're quadrupling your money pretty much every
Every 5 years.
10 years, 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
Right. Whereas, let's talk about the 401k, right? Because I know most people are into this whole 401k or putting their money in a savings account because they want to look at it every day. Um, if you put your money in those spaces, it's not going to double in 5 to 10 years. It's going to take a whole lot longer for you to get your money to where you're trying to get it to. And when you are, let's say, building a family, and you and your spouse or whoever wants to get your money to double or triple in a certain amount of time, you can't let it sit in a savings account because you are going to be beat up by inflation.
Absolutely. And once again, for disclaimer purposes, we are not financial advisors. We're not giving financial, tax, or accounting or legal advice. This is purely for entertainment and educational purposes for the family and our friends.
Hmm.
So yes, that's not how you would grow wealth.
Correct.
You
So
can't grow wealth slow.
no, it has to be some speed behind.
Speed with time, but it can't be slow.
It can't be slow. It can be. I was doing some research even yesterday on the amount of money people have when they retire. Because no, let's face it, no one wants to work forever. And they said the average person should have around 600,000. I think it was like 609 or something like that when they retire. But they said the vast majority of people who retire at 65, 67 are under $200,000 in their retirement saving. If you don't have a pension, because some people have pensions, so they get a little lucky in this. But if you don't have a pension, then you're going to be in trouble really soon. Really, really, really soon. So these are conversations that you have. We're talking about 50-50 in relationships and how that doesn't work. But this is a conversation. So when you're sitting down with your spouse and you're making up your contract on how money is going to move and matter in your lives, you have to discuss retirement as well. Even if you're getting married at 20 or 25 years old, you still need to have the conversation on what are we doing for our future? What is the plan for our retirement? You want to have that conversation because no one wants to work forever. And some people do retire at 35.
Well, here's what's interesting, right? No one ever pays attention to the timeline of life.
They don't.
The average mortality in America is 78 years old. So even if you're 28, 50 years seem like a lot of time ahead of you before you die, but then you generally will retire.
It's 60 something, 65, 67.
So you don't even have 50 years ahead of you.
That's true.
And that goes at the blink of an eye.
Time moves. Time waits for no one.
So,
Time moves very.
I hear an echo. I don't know if it's me. I hear an echo. I hear myself talking, strangely enough.
Oh, you do?
I'm on a headset.
You sound fine on my end.
I'm on a headset. So.
Yeah, I didn't even put I'm charging my phone as we're talking.
Oh, so you're in the speaker.
So it's my fault.
Yeah, so that's why I'm here. I'm hearing myself project on your side.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this was a really good conversation. And I think we should have more conversations like this as well. When it comes to matrimony and money, right?
Matrimony and money. Well, I love it. I love it.
Let's have that. That's because it's a lot of
family.
people.
I call it the family economy.
Right. That's a good one too. That is a good one as well. So we could just have because a lot more people are coming together, they're getting married. This is the age when that 20 and 35-year-old. It's better to learn early than to try and just figure it out. Like a lot of us get pushed out into the world to try and figure this out.
And what's a lot of too, and this is real for today's time age and framework. A lot of families are blended families from day one. The days of when you married as a virgin and you guys didn't have any previous life with someone else, you started your family together. Nowadays, most people already have a child before they're married. And so a lot of the time you're bringing a blended family to the table.
This is
and that's a whole different conversation.
It is. And that's something that you need to understand how to bring other children into the fold so that everyone is comfortable even in that situation. And how do we have that conversation when it comes to even beneficiaries, right? Make sure our children are taken care of, long after we leave here and things of that nature. So, yeah, these are good conversations, money conversations, because there's plenty of ways to have conversations about our personal economics, but you can't be afraid to delve in and say that I need to sit down and look at some things. Like, we're going into 2025. And like I said the other day, a lot of people each and every year are always trying to figure out, why am I still in the same position financially that I was in 2020 and 2015? And I got a 3% raise every year. but it's not doing anything for me, right? So how do I start to figure out how to start moving the needle in my life on the financial side? And like I always tell people, when you go to the link in my bio or you go to pinkpowerceo.com, when you go there, you're able to schedule what we call a strategy session where we have a detailed adult conversation on how to put a good plan, pathway, and process in place for you to move forward, to start that wealth building journey. This is not some microwavable type of conversation. We're not going to, this is not a get rich quick opportunity. This is a way for you to really have a good in depth look at where you are financially and how to move you to the next phase. I show people how to make, manage, and multiply money, and Al does as well, right? So he teaches the same thing, but he takes it to a whole deeper level where you start to really understand how money works,
Yeah.
the true cost of money. Because something is a 7.99% interest rate, trust and believe that's not what you're paying for whatever that car or house is.
When I'm done with you, you'll be a conscious capitalist. That's for sure.
Right, exactly. So you just want to make sure that when you are making financial decisions, you're making smart money decisions that are going to be, that's going to help you leverage forward financially and protect you in your assets as you start to acquire assets in your latter years, in your current and latter years, so that you're in a position to be okay when you get older.
Absolutely.
Right. So any closing remarks on this conversation?
Always think fairness versus equality, because in the law that supports that is the law of polarity, means there's always a polar opposite, which basically could mean that no two things are equal,
Okay.
even in your own person, right? One eye, one eyeball is smaller than the other. One hand is bigger than the other. Nothing is completely symmetrical. It's asymmetrical.
Right. So when you say when you're having these conversations and you're talking about being fair, this is the reason why when Al brought the 30% conversation to me, it's something I never heard of before. First of all, because the what we hear the loudest is 50-50.
Fitty
But
fitty.
fitty fitty. So when he initially brought this up to me months ago, I was like, man, that's different, right? But the more I thought about it, I was like, that's actually a fair notion, because at least I'll still have my 50 to 70% out of what I have worked for. If I'm somebody who earns 60,000 a year and you're earning 120, we still have, at least half of what we earn to ourselves. So we don't feel like we're fighting for our lives financially because we got to put 50% of our earnings into this pot or whatever it is, and still try to figure out some other things as well.
Correct.
So it just seems like a fair notion if you want to have a harmonious household.
There you
So
go. Everything is an energy, a vibration, or a frequency. And
yeah.
those things function on something called harmonics. So when everything is flowing in tandem, it is harmony. When things are not flowing or in an allowance with harmonics, you get friction or static. So you don't want static in your relationship, you want harmony.
You definitely want harmony.
Which means you got to understand the law of harmonics. Yeah.
So yeah, so I hope this was some good information for those who will hear this on the replay, and you can catch it on YouTube at Pink Power CEO or at Prophetic Financier, and on YouTube, because that's where it will be in about an hour. So
Hey,
I want to say thank you again for a great conversation, and I think this is going to help a lot of people.
absolutely. Well, happy Indigenous People Day.
Exactly. Well, that too. because we don't
Luckily,
recognize that other person. But yeah,
right? We the indigenous people.
exactly. All right, everyone, have a blessed and prosperous day. We'll be back tomorrow at our normal time.
All right, you too.
All right,
Bye
thanks. Bye
bye.
bye.